Welcome. In this module, we're going to talk about masking. Masking is the way that we preserve the white of the paper underneath what we're painting. There are several times we'd like to do that. This is in lieu of using white paint, Chinese white or a white gouache. It has an unnatural look to do that. And when we're doing transparent watercolors, it's a challenge, but the look is so much better if we simply preserve the white underneath. Unlike acrylic or oils where you would add white in, transparent watercolors does not use white. And it's the reserving that white that really makes it fun and makes it have that luminosity in it. In this particular painting right here, I did it here in the eyes. I put a little bit of masking fluid here. I also did it just in this area right in here where you can see the little hairs in the ear here. That was reserved by doing masking, and then I was able just to paint over it, rub it off, and then I added color on top of that. It doesn't have to stay white. It can simply preserve a shape that you want to not have to do negative painting around. Now, that was an option here. I could have come in with a paintbrush and carefully painted around all the light areas in here. But this is a wonderful way to do it. I didn't use any on the fur. This was all negative painting up in here, leaving spots in here to come in with the other color. So that's an example there. In a portrait, a lot of times I will use masking just simply on the eyes for that reflection in there. And it's a wonderful way to do it and not have to worry about covering up while you're putting all the colors on and shaping everything. So that's an excellent way to do it. In this example right here, I'm going to show you, let me zoom in here, that I did it here, you can see on her eyes right here, but I've got an area right here that we're going to work on a couple of different techniques here. There are different ways to apply masking fluid. Now there's different names, liquid masking, liquid frisket. This is called drawing gum. They're all the same thing. And what it is basically a watery rubber cement. And there are different colors, different types, lots of different brands. I prefer the ones that have some coloring in it because that way when it's on the paper, then I can see it's there if I'm doing a large area. In fact, here's an example right here of a painting I did of some kids playing in a fountain. I needed to reserve all that white space in there and yet be able to paint the kids. So I used almost 2 bottles of masking fluid. When the thing was totally dry, I rubbed it all off and then went in and I added all the coloring in there for the water, added the blue and everything. It's a wonderful way to do that. Now, one of the aspects of masking is it leaves a hard edge. So that's something to keep in mind. If you want to keep a soft edge, then sometimes lifting or doing negative painting around something will make a softer edge to it. So this particular brand right here, I really like. As I said, there's several different brands, and there's different types of techniques. Some of these come with a little applicator. You can actually use, if you want, a toothpick. You can also use an old craft brush, which is really handy, but make sure it's a brush that you're not going to use again, because when it gets the masking in it, it's no good. It's going to dry on there. One way to do it is to dip a brush into water and a little bit of dishwashing liquid, and that will coat it. And then what you'll do is dip into your masking fluid, just a little bit, and that will allow you then to be able to place it. So that's a fine way to do it. It only holds so much, so you're dipping back in a lot. You can also use a toothpick, and that is another way that you can do it. My favorite way is using what's called ruling pens. These ruling pens, you can find them online at different art supply places, or just type in ruling pens. There are some architectural drafting places that sell these. In fact, that's what these originally were for was for architects. They would dip it into a bottle of ink and they would use it then to draw their straight lines. And by adjusting the little knob on here, you can see that it's touching. That's a very fine line. If you turn it and open it up, then you get a thicker line in there. Same thing with the masking fluid. That this is the one that I love and I've had for 20 years now that you can't find anymore. Stainless steel. But all these other ones will work. It takes a little bit of practice to get used to it. But you can see it puts down a line. If I really tighten it tight, then I get a very thin. See how thin that line is? And you could use that to do little hairs or do that little spot in the eye. And there you go. Now, the one thing you have to do is you have to let it dry. So before adding paint on top of it, it must be totally dry. It doesn't take long. Give it about 5 minutes and you can touch it then and see. One thing to remember, if you put it down and it's too big or something's not right, let it dry, rub it off and do it again. Don't rub it while it's still wet or it'll just go everywhere and make a mess and you've got to, when it dries, rub all that stuff off. So, as I said, it's really important to make sure it's dry paper. Now, when you put coloring on top of it, it's really important then to let it dry before you rub it off. Here's an example where about half an hour ago, I added this color to it. So this will be fine. This is plenty dry right now that I can rub this off. And I'll show you, I'm just going to use my finger here. You can use a rubber square that they sell at the stores also, but finger works really well. So you can see now, it's got hard edges in there, but it has reserved that coloring. Then say if it's something like grasses, and I wanted to go back and I wanted to paint on top of it, then I could come back in, grab some color, and I can paint right on top of it, like that. That actually would probably be better with something bright like yellow. So there we go. So it's really handy tool to have. One important thing too also is 100% cotton paper is recommended not only for using this, I recommend it for any painting that you do. The cheap cellulose paper that you buy, even though it says artist or whatever student on it, can give you some problems because it is made of cellulose, tree. It's paper, as opposed to this paper here is actually 100% cotton, and it takes abuse, and it also allows us to do techniques like this without, and I've seen this happen on cheap paper, somebody rubs it up and it tears the paper underneath because it's just done in thin layers as opposed to high quality. So it's always worth buying high quality paper. I'll show you up here. I'll go ahead and put a little glaze on top of this so you can see. And what's handy about it too is that you're able to do, as I said, like the hairs on the ears there, the fur of the deer. You can also do stippling, like if you're doing wood, like the side of a barn, anything like that, and it will give you that. In fact, here's a couple of examples of me using this in different techniques and for different purposes in there, all the way from wood to portraits to whiskers. In fact, this one right here is one of my best friends, and I used it on his beard, and it just gives an effect unlike any other way of doing it. That took a lot of masking for that. So, well, go ahead and have fun and be adventurous, play around, and it is well worth the effort to add this to your artistic toolbox. All right, keep those brushes wet.